Jake Morrison stood at the control center of his ship, the UES Liberty. His hands gripped the metal rail as he watched the big screen in front of him. The screen showed something that made his stomach feel sick. Another human colony was under attack. The colony was called New Haven. 2 million people lived there. Normal people with families, jobs, and dreams. People who had left Earth to build a new life among the stars. Now those people were sending desperate messages into space, begging for help as alien warships dropped bombs on their cities. Jake had been a ship commander for 15 years. He had seen battles before. He had seen good people die. But this was different. This was not a fair fight between armies. This was big alien ships attacking helpless families. The worst part was that help could come. The Galactic Council had ships nearby. Lots of ships. Ships that could save those 2 million people in a few hours. But those ships just sat there, doing nothing. Lieutenant Kate Adams walked up to Jake. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and worried eyes. She had been working at the communications desk all morning, trying to get someone to help New Haven. "Sir, I tried calling the council again," Kate said. Her voice shook a little. "They said the attack on New Haven is not their problem. They said humans need to solve their own troubles." Jake felt something hot rise in his chest. Anger, but more than anger. Something deeper and more dangerous. What about the Vorthon ships in that area? They could help. Kate looked down at her feet. "The Vorthon commander laughed at me, sir. He said maybe this will teach humans to know their place in the galaxy." For 3 long years, Jake had watched this happen over and over. The Galactic Council treated humans like dirt. They made rules. That hurt human trade. They refused to let humans join their fancy club of space civilizations. They acted like humans were too stupid and violent to deserve respect. Jake remembered when humans first met the aliens. Everyone on Earth was so excited. Finally, humanity was not alone in the universe. There were other smart species out there. Maybe they could be friends. Maybe they could learn from each other and build something beautiful together. That dream died quickly. The aliens looked at human history and saw all the wars. They saw the fights between countries, the weapons, the times humans hurt each other. They decided humans were dangerous and primitive. They decided humans needed to be controlled and kept weak. The Zentari Empire was the worst. They were tall, aliens with gray skin and cold eyes. They had big ships and powerful weapons. They thought they owned half the galaxy. When they found human settlements on planets they wanted, they just took them. They made humans work as slaves in their mines and factories. When humans complained to the Galactic Council, the Council did nothing. They said it was a legal matter between the Zentari and humanity. They said humans should have asked permission before settling those planets. They said humans brought this trouble on themselves. Ambassador Lisa Carter spent months on the Council's home planet, trying to make them understand. She showed them pictures of human families torn apart by Zentari slave raids. She brought recordings of children crying for their parents. She explained that humans just wanted to live in peace and trade fairly with other species. The council members listened politely and did nothing. Some of them even seemed to enjoy watching humans suffer. The Vorthon delegates made jokes about human weakness. The crystal folk said humans needed to learn discipline. The machine people calculated that human suffering was acceptable for galactic stability. Jake thought about his own family. His wife Sarah lived on Earth with their 2 kids. His son was 8 years old and wanted to be a space explorer like his dad. His daughter was 6 and loved to draw pictures of aliens she saw in books. They thought the galaxy was full of friends waiting to meet them. Jake never told them the truth. He never told them that most aliens saw humans as pests to be stepped on. He never told them that every day, somewhere in space, humans were being killed while alien peacekeepers looked the other way. The communication system made a sound. Kate ran back to her station and put on her headset. She listened for a minute, then turned to Jake with tears in her eyes. "Sir, New Haven just went silent. All communications stopped." Jake closed his eyes. 2 million people. Families sitting down for dinner. Kids playing in parks. doctors and teachers and engineers building a better future. All gone because the galaxy had decided human lives did not matter. Something broke inside Jake at that moment. Not just in him, but in every human who heard the news. Across human space, from the smallest research station to the biggest military base, people felt the same thing. They felt tired of being nice, tired of following rules that only worked against them, tired of asking for respect they would never get. Colonel Steve Parker was on Earth when the news came. He was sitting in a meeting with other military officers, planning another diplomatic mission to ask the Council for help. When he heard about New Haven, he stood up and walked out of the meeting. He went straight to the secure communication room and called every human military commander in the galaxy. Captain Roy Bennett was protecting a trade convoy when he got the message. His hands shook as he read the report. His own daughter had been on a research station that Zentari raiders destroyed last month. The Council said there was not enough evidence to prove the Zentari were responsible. They said human safety was not a Council priority. Dr. Amy Foster was running a medical station near alien space. She helped anyone who needed healing, human or alien. She believed in peace and cooperation. When she heard about New Haven, she realized that being good to others did not mean they would be good to you. Sometimes good people had to fight back, or more good people would die. All across human space, the same conversation was happening. Military officers talked to each other on secret channels. Ship captains shared information they had been keeping quiet. Scientists compared notes about alien weaknesses they had discovered but never used. For 3 years, humans had been holding back. They had weapons that could crack planets in half. They had strategies learned from thousands of years of war on Earth. They had technologies that could shut down entire star systems, but they kept these things secret, hoping to prove they were peaceful enough to join galactic society. The galaxy had made its choice. Human lives did not matter. Human suffering was entertainment. Human strength was something to be crushed before it could grow. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. These were good people who had spent years trying to protect human settlements with rules that worked against them. They had watched their friends die while following orders to be nice to aliens who hated them. "Kate, send a message to Earth Command," Jake said. His voice was quiet but hard as steel. "Tell them the diplomacy phase is over. Tell them it is time to show the galaxy what humans are really like when they stop being polite." Kate nodded and started typing. Across the galaxy, similar messages were being sent. The age of human patience was ending. The age of human war was about to begin. The aliens had wanted to see humanity's violent nature. They were about to get a lesson they would never forget. Admiral Helen Brooks stood in the war room deep under the Pentagon on Earth. The room was full of screens showing star maps, ship positions, and alien fleet movements. For the first time in 3 years, she was not planning another peace mission or diplomatic visit. She was planning war. Around the big table sat the best military minds humanity had. Colonel Steve Parker was there, along with General Paul Martin and Captain Lisa Stone. These people had spent their careers studying alien weaknesses while pretending to be friendly ambassadors and peaceful traders. "The galaxy thinks they know us," Admiral Brooks said as she looked at the faces around her. "They think we are weak because we asked for help instead of taking what we wanted. They think we are stupid because we followed their rules while they broke them." She pressed a button, and the main screen showed a video from New Haven Colony. It was the last transmission before the colony went silent. Families running in the streets as alien bombs fell from the sky. Children crying for their parents. Buildings that took years to build turning into fire and smoke in minutes. "They did this because they knew we would do nothing," Brooks continued. "They knew we would file a complaint with the Council and wait politely for justice that would never come. They were right about what we would do. They were wrong about what we could do." Colonel Parker stood up and walked to another screen. It showed the locations of human fleets that most aliens did not know existed. For 3 years, while diplomats made speeches about peace, human military forces had been preparing for this day. "Operation Reckoning begins in 6 hours," Parker said. "We have been watching them, learning their patterns, finding their weak spots. They fight wars like a game with rules. We fight wars to win. The plan was simple but deadly. Human forces would not attack alien military ships directly. That was what the aliens expected. Instead, they would attack the things that kept alien civilization running. Food shipments, power stations, communication networks, and trade routes. Captain Stone pulled up detailed maps of Zentari space. The Zentari Empire was huge and powerful, but it needed constant supplies moving between thousands of planets. Their military doctrine is based on big fleets and strong shields, she explained. But their supply ships have no protection. Their food factories are not defended. Their communication relays are sitting targets. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Wells had spent 2 years studying how the Zentari Empire worked. She knew which planets made their weapons, which stations processed their food, and which ships carried their fuel. If we cut off their supplies, their mighty fleets become floating junk in space. The other alien civilizations had similar weaknesses. The Vorthan Consortium depended on rare minerals from a few mining worlds. The Crystal Folk needed specific energy frequencies to survive. The Machine People followed predictable programming that could be hacked and changed. Admiral Brooks had been in the military for 30 years. She had fought in wars on Earth where human armies faced each other. Those wars taught hard lessons about what it took to win against a determined enemy. The aliens had never learned those lessons because they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The Galactic Council thinks war is about big battles between fleets, Brooks said. Earth taught us that war is about making the enemy unable to fight. You do not just destroy their soldiers. You destroy their ability to make new soldiers, feed existing soldiers, and move soldiers where they need to go. Captain Roy Bennett was commanding a fleet near Zentari territory. His ships looked like normal human cargo vessels, the kind that had been trading peacefully with aliens for years. The Zentari patrol ships paid no attention to them. They had no idea that each cargo ship was actually a military vessel loaded with weapons and special forces teams. Bennett thought about his daughter as he gave the order to begin the attack. She had been studying alien languages at a research station when Zentari raiders attacked. The official report said there were no survivors. The council said there was no proof the Zentari were responsible. Now Bennett was going to give them all the proof they needed. His first target was a Zentari logistics hub. The aliens had built a huge space station that coordinated supply deliveries for their entire military. It was heavily defended with shields and weapon platforms. A direct attack would be suicide. Bennett did not attack the station directly. Instead, his forces targeted the small maintenance robots that kept the station running. The cleaning drones, the repair bots, the automated systems that processed waste and recycled air. Within hours, the station was drowning in its own garbage while life support systems began to fail. The Zentari commander sent desperate messages asking for evacuation. Bennett answered personally. "This is Captain Roy Bennett of the Human Defense Force. You destroyed my daughter's research station 6 months ago. The Galactic Council said there was no proof. Consider this your proof." Similar attacks were happening across alien space at the same time. Dr. Amy Foster had once run a peaceful medical station. Now she led a team of human scientists who were using their knowledge of alien biology against them. They released a virus into Vorthan computer systems that made their machines think their crystal operators were enemies. The virus did not hurt the Vorthan people directly, but it made all their technology stop working. Spaceships could not fly. Communication systems went dead. Even simple door locks stopped recognizing their owners. The mighty Vorthan Consortium found itself trapped in a stone age while human forces moved freely through their territory. Major Gary Thompson commanded a special operations unit that hit the Quantum Collective. These aliens existed partly in normal space and partly in other dimensions. They thought this made them impossible to attack. Thompson's team had spent months learning how quantum technology worked. They built weapons that could reach into other dimensions and drag the collective back into normal space where they could be hurt. The Hive Lords discovered that their greatest strength was also their weakness. They shared one mind across billions of bodies, which made them very coordinated. But when human hackers found a way into their mental network, they could control the entire species at once. Suddenly, Hive-Lord fleets were attacking their own bases while their soldiers could not understand why their bodies would not obey their commands. General Nick Adams was in charge of the attacks on alien infrastructure. His teams had been mapping alien supply lines for 3 years while pretending to be cargo inspectors and safety regulators. Now they used that knowledge to shut down entire star systems. A single bomb on the right power relay could black out 50 planets. A computer virus in the right place could crash the banking systems that financed alien militaries. A few destroyed. Bridges could trap entire fleets in star systems with no way to get fuel or food. The aliens had never seen anything like it. They were used to wars where 2 fleets met in space and fought until one side won. They understood battles with clear rules and honorable conduct. They did not understand enemies who attacked everything at once from directions they never expected. Admiral Patricia Wells commanded the human fleet that hit the Shadow Collective. These aliens lived in dark space between stars and thought they were invisible. Wells had been tracking their movements for years using sensors they did not know existed. When the attack began, Shadow Collective forces found human ships waiting for them in what they thought were secret hiding places. The Shadow Collective tried to retreat deeper into dark space. Wells was ready for that too. Human forces had planted tracking devices on their ships months earlier, during what the aliens thought were routine inspections. Now there was nowhere in the galaxy they could hide. Within the first week, 3 major alien civilizations were crippled. The Zentari Empire was starving as supply lines collapsed. The Vorthon Consortium was blind and deaf with all communications down. The Shadow Collective was being hunted through dark space by enemies who could see them coming from light years away. The galaxy was learning that humanity had been studying them very carefully during those 3 years of peaceful diplomacy. Every weakness, every supply route, every critical system had been mapped and targeted. The aliens thought they were dealing with primitive newcomers. They were actually facing predators who had been planning this hunt since the day they arrived in galactic space. The age of human patience was over. The age of alien dominance was ending. The galaxy was about to learn why it was dangerous to push a species that had spent its entire history learning how to win wars against impossible odds. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their long history. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the Great Hall on Nexus Prime. But instead of the usual calm discussions about trade and territory, there was panic in the air. Council Speaker Vexlor tried to keep order as reports flooded in from every corner of galactic space. His forearms waved frantically as he read message after message about human attacks. The tall alien had ruled council sessions for 50 years, but he had never seen anything like this. "The Zentari Grand Fleet has been destroyed," announced Councillor Thalnex, his tentacles shaking with fear. 3,000 ships reduced to space debris in less than 6 hours. How is this possible? Admiral Zethka of the Vorthon Consortium slammed his crystal fist on the speaking platform. "My people cannot even communicate with each other. Every computer system in our territory has been infected with some kind of human virus. Our ships are floating blind in space." The reports kept coming. The Shadow Collective had lost half their fleet to human forces that seemed to know exactly where every ship was hiding. The Quantum Collective was being systematically pulled out of their dimensional hiding places and destroyed in normal space. The machine people were fighting their own programming as human hackers turned their systems against them. But the worst news came from the Hive Lords. These ancient beings had shared one mind across trillions of bodies for millions of years. Now their delegate stood in the council hall, speaking in broken sentences as his species' mental network collapsed. "Humans, inside our thoughts," the Hive Lord representative struggled to say, "cannot control own bodies, our fleets, attacking each other. Please help us." Council Speaker Vexlor had seen many wars in his lifetime, but they had all followed the same pattern. 2 sides would declare hostilities, gather their fleets, and fight battles in space until one side surrendered or was destroyed. There were rules. There was honor. There was a clear beginning and end. Humanity was fighting a different kind of war. They attacked everything at once: military targets, civilian infrastructure, communication networks, trade routes, even the basic systems that kept alien civilizations running. It was like fighting smoke or shadow, impossible to catch and impossible to stop. Fleet Admiral Gary Thompson commanded the human forces that had destroyed the Zentari Grand Fleet. The aliens had expected a traditional space battle with ships, lined up facing each other, firing weapons until one side won. Instead, they found themselves in a deadly maze. The humans had spent months placing automated weapon platforms throughout the system. They had gravitational mines that pulled ships off course and into each other. They had swarms of small fighter craft that reproduced themselves using materials from destroyed enemy ships. When the Zentari fleet arrived, they thought they were facing 200 human ships. By the time the battle was over, they realized they had been fighting the entire solar system itself. Every asteroid had been turned into a weapon. Every piece of space debris was a potential bomb. Every gravity well was a trap. Admiral Thompson watched from his command ship as the last Zentari vessels tried to retreat. "Send them a message," he told his communications officer. "Tell them this is what happens when you attack defenseless colonies. Tell them to remember New Haven." The Zentari had been the most feared military force in the galaxy for 1,000 years. Now their survivors were running home to warn their people that humanity had weapons and tactics beyond their understanding. Major Lisa Stone was leading the assault on Vorthon research facilities. The Vorthon Consortium prided themselves on their advanced technology and superior intellect. They had spent centuries studying other species and developing countermeasures for every known weapon system. They had not developed countermeasures for human creativity. Stone's team infiltrated the consortium's most secure research station, the place where they studied dimensional gateway technology. The station was supposed to be impossible to attack, protected by shields that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The humans did not attack the shields. They used the station's own dimensional technology against it. Stone's team activated the gateway system and connected it to the gravity well of a nearby black hole. In seconds, the entire research facility was pulled into another dimension where the laws of physics worked differently. "Where did it go?" demanded the Vorthon fleet commander, as his sensors showed nothing but empty space where the research station used to be. Stone answered over the communication channel. "The same place you sent human colonies when you thought we would not fight back. The difference is we made sure your people got there safely. They are just going to be studying black holes up close for the rest of their lives." Captain Rick Stone was facing an even more dangerous enemy. The Void Hunters were ancient beings that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. They fed on the life energy of entire civilizations, and their dark energy weapons could dissolve matter at the molecular level. Most species considered the Void Hunters to be a natural disaster, like storms or earthquakes. You could only hide from them and hope they would go away. The idea of actually fighting them seemed impossible. Stone's fleet had been preparing for this encounter for months. Human scientists had studied every recorded interaction with the Void Hunters, analyzing their energy signatures and weapon patterns. They discovered something that no other species had ever figured out. The Void Hunters' dark energy weapons worked by breaking the bonds that held atoms together. But if you could absorb that energy and convert it into something else, the weapons became useless. Human ships were equipped with special shields that turned dark energy into ordinary electromagnetic radiation. When the Void Hunters attacked, expecting to dissolve the human fleet instantly, their weapons instead made the human ships glow brightly but caused no damage. For the first time in millions of years, the Void Hunters found themselves facing an enemy they could not simply erase from existence. Stone gave the order to return fire. Human weapons were designed to work on a completely different principle than anything the Void Hunters had encountered before. Instead of trying to destroy their physical forms, human weapons targeted the energy patterns that kept the ancient beings alive. The battle was over in minutes. The Void Hunters, who had consumed entire civilizations, were themselves consumed by weapons that turned their own life energy against them. Word of their defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Dr. Karen Lewis was running the psychological warfare campaign from Earth. Her job was to make sure every alien civilization understood exactly what was happening and why. She broadcast messages across all communication channels, explaining in detail how humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they joined Galactic Society. You thought we were weak because we asked for help instead of taking what we wanted. Her message said, you thought we were stupid because we followed your rules while you ignored them. You were wrong about both things. The broadcasts included detailed technical information about human weapons and tactics. This was not classified military intelligence. It was a deliberate choice to let the aliens know exactly how outmatched they were. Every trade mission you allowed into your territory included intelligence agents mapping your infrastructure, Lewis continued. Every diplomatic meeting gave us access to your computer networks. Every cultural exchange let us study your biology and psychology. We have been preparing for this war while you thought we were trying to be your friends. The messages had their intended effect. Panic spread through alien governments as they realized how thoroughly they had been infiltrated and studied. Species that had considered themselves superior to humanity were discovering that humans had been analyzing their weaknesses for years. Commander Betty Clark led the team that had hacked into the machine people's central processing core. These artificial beings thought they were immune to biological warfare and psychological manipulation. They prided themselves on pure logic and mathematical precision. Clark's team used that precision against them. They introduced subtle errors into the machine people's calculations, tiny mistakes that compounded over time until the artificial beings could no longer trust their own computational abilities. Machine fleets found themselves unable to navigate properly as their computers gave them conflicting directions. Logic is only as good as the information you base it on, Clark transmitted to the confused machine people. We have been feeding you false information for 3 years. Every calculation you have made about human capabilities has been wrong from the beginning. The galaxy was learning that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their military tactics. It was their ability to plan ahead and think several steps beyond their enemies. While aliens were fighting today's war, humans had been preparing for tomorrow's war. Within 2 months of the first human attack, 7 major galactic civilizations were either destroyed or crippled. The carefully maintained balance of power that had kept peace for thousands of years was shattered. The galaxy's new reality was simple. Humanity had become the dominant military force in known space. The Galactic Council chambers had never seen anything like it. Delegates who had once strutted around with pride and arrogance now cowered in their seats as desperate messages poured in from across the galaxy. The great hall that had once echoed, with condescending laughter at human requests for help, was now filled with the sound of panic and fear. Council Speaker Vex Lore stood at the central podium, his forearms shaking as he read the latest reports. In just 3 months, humanity had brought the galaxy to its knees. 7 major civilizations were crippled, trade routes were shut down, communication networks were destroyed. The carefully maintained order that had lasted for thousands of years was falling apart. We must contact the humans, said Councillor Thalnex, his tentacles writhing with fear. We must negotiate before they destroy everything we have built. But Admiral Zeth Ka of the Vorthan Consortium was not ready to surrender. His crystal form glowed with anger as he stood to address the council. We cannot show weakness to these primitive creatures. If we gather all our remaining forces together, we can still defeat them. The other delegates looked at him like he was insane. The Vorthan Consortium had lost 90% of its fleet. Their homeworlds were cut off from all outside contact. Their people were living in darkness without power or communication systems. With what forces? Demanded the Hive Lord representative. The humans have turned our own minds against us. Half. Our species cannot control their own bodies anymore. Our fleets are attacking each other because we cannot tell friend from enemy. The machine people delegate spoke in a voice full of static and errors. Our computational cores have been corrupted. We cannot trust our own calculations. Every tactical decision leads to disaster. The humans have made us doubt the very logic that defines our existence. Director Sean Murphy sat in his office on Earth, reading intelligence reports from across the galaxy. His team had spent 3 years learning everything there was to know about alien civilizations. Now that knowledge was being used to bring those civilizations to their knees. Murphy had compiled detailed files on every species humanity had encountered. He knew which planets produced their food, which systems generated their power, and which individuals made their important decisions. More importantly, he knew their fears, their weaknesses, and exactly how to break their will to fight. The psychological warfare campaign was working perfectly. Alien civilizations were discovering that humanity had been studying them in ways they never imagined. Every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation, every diplomatic meeting had been an intelligence-gathering operation. Captain Nancy Wells was leading the assault on the Crystal Empire. These beings lived for thousands of years and thought they were the wisest species in the galaxy. They had watched younger civilizations rise and fall, while their empire remained stable and unchanging. Wells targeted that stability. Her forces did not attack crystal cities or fleets directly. Instead, they disrupted the frequency patterns that crystal beings used to communicate with each other. Without those frequencies, the ancient aliens could not coordinate their actions or even think clearly. "Your empire has lasted 10,000 years, Wells broadcast to the confused crystal leaders. "It took us 3 months to bring it down. The difference between you and us is that you never expected to face an enemy that could adapt faster than you could respond." The Crystal Empire tried to change their communication frequencies, but human forces adapted to each change within hours. The aliens, who prided themselves on ancient wisdom, found themselves unable to match the speed of human innovation. General Paul Martin was coordinating attacks across 17 different star systems at the same time. This was something no alien commander had ever attempted. Most species could barely manage military operations in one system, let alone coordinate complex campaigns across multiple sectors simultaneously. Martin had learned his skills fighting wars on Earth, where human armies had to coordinate attacks across entire continents while maintaining supply lines that stretched across oceans. Galactic warfare was just an extension of principles humanity had already mastered. "The aliens fight wars like chess games," Martin explained to his staff officers. "They move one piece at a time and think carefully about each move. We fight wars like we are playing 17 chess games at once while also building new pieces and changing the rules as we go." The Peaceful Trade Alliance sent a desperate message to Earth, offering to surrender all their territories in exchange for mercy. These aliens had spent centuries building a commercial empire based on fair trade and mutual cooperation. They had never harmed humans directly, but they had stood by and watched while other species attacked human colonies. Ambassador Lisa Carter read their surrender offer in her office on Earth. She remembered the months she had spent begging these same aliens for help, explaining that human families were being destroyed while they did nothing. Their response had been polite indifference. "Too late," Carter said as she deleted their message without responding. "You had your chance to help when we asked nicely. Now you get to find out what happens when we stop asking." The Trade Alliance watched in horror as human forces systematically dismantled their commercial network. Every trading post, every shipping route, every financial center was shut down or destroyed. The empire they had spent centuries building was erased in a matter of weeks. Captain Sean Collins was hunting down the last remnants of the Shadow Collective. These aliens had thought they were untouchable, hiding in the dark spaces between stars, where no other species could find them. They had spent millions of years raiding other civilizations and disappearing before anyone could retaliate. Collins had spent 2 years developing new sensor technologies specifically designed to track the Shadow Collective. His ships could see heat signatures, gravitational distortions, and energy patterns that the aliens thought were invisible. There was nowhere in the galaxy they could hide anymore. "You have been hunting other species for millions of years," Collins transmitted as his forces surrounded the last Shadow Fleet. "Now you know what it feels like to be the prey instead of the predator." The Shadow Collective tried to surrender, offering to share their advanced stealth technology in exchange for their lives. Collins considered the offer for exactly 1 second before ordering the attack to continue. These aliens had destroyed human research stations and killed thousands of innocent people. They deserved no mercy. Dr. Karen Lewis expanded her psychological warfare campaign to target specific alien leaders. Her team had studied the personalities and fears of every major government official in the galaxy. Now they were using that knowledge to drive their enemies to despair. The Zentari Emperor received daily messages showing him exactly how his mighty empire was falling apart. Each message included detailed analysis of his military failures and personal weaknesses. The alien who had once commanded the respect of half the galaxy was now hiding in his palace, afraid to make any decisions because he knew they would be wrong. The Quantum Collective's leadership found themselves trapped in parallel dimensions, unable to communicate with their own people. Human scientists had figured out how to manipulate quantum space, something the aliens thought was impossible for primitive species to understand. "We studied your technology while pretending to be amazed by it," Lewis transmitted to the trapped quantum leaders. "Every time you showed off your advanced capabilities, we were learning how to use them against you. Your greatest strength became your greatest weakness." Colonel Betty Hayes led the final assault on the Zentari homeworld. This was the planet where the decision had been made to destroy New Haven Colony. This was where alien leaders had laughed about human weakness and made jokes about human suffering. Hayes did not bomb the planet or kill its civilians. Instead, she landed her forces and took control of the planetary government buildings. The Zentari military tried to resist, but their weapons and tactics were no match for human special forces trained in urban warfare. Within hours, Hayes was sitting in the Zentari Emperor's throne room, dictating terms of surrender. The alien who had once ordered the destruction of human colonies was now kneeling before a human soldier, begging for his life. "Every human who died because of your orders is looking down at you right now," Hayes told the defeated emperor. "They are seeing justice finally served. Your empire is finished. Your people will remember this day as the moment they learned that actions have consequences." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Alien leaders who had dismissed humanity as primitive and weak were discovering that they had awakened, something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. The species they had tried to keep down was now standing over them, deciding their fate. The war was almost over. Humanity had won not through superior technology or larger armies, but through superior planning, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect their people. The galaxy had learned too late that the humans they thought were weak were actually predators who had been waiting for the right moment to strike. Now came the hardest part, deciding what to do with their defeated enemies and building a new order that would prevent this kind of tragedy from ever happening again. President Frank Davies stood at the podium in what used to be the Galactic Council chambers. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime looked very different now. Where alien delegates had once sat in positions of power, human officers and administrators were setting up the new government that would rule the galaxy. The war was over. It had lasted 6 months and changed everything. The old Galactic Council that had ignored human suffering was gone forever. In its place was the Terran Galactic Authority, with humans in charge and aliens learning to follow human rules. Davies looked out at the crowd of alien delegates who had come to hear humanity's terms for peace. These were the same beings who had laughed at human requests for help just months ago. Now they sat quietly, afraid to speak without permission. The balance of power had completely shifted. "6 months ago you thought we were weak," Davies began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. "You thought we were too primitive to deserve respect. You watched our people suffer and die, and you did nothing to help. Some of you even enjoyed watching us struggle." The alien delegates looked down at their hands, tentacles or crystal formations. None of them tried to argue. They had all seen what happened to civilizations that opposed humanity. The ruins of the Zentari Empire served as a warning to anyone who might think about resisting human authority. Senator Carol Brooks sat at the head of the new Galactic Assembly, reading the list of changes that would reshape alien society. She had been one of the diplomats who spent years begging for alien help and getting nothing but condescending lectures about human violence. "The age of species preying on each other is over," Brooks announced. "Slavery is now illegal throughout the galaxy. Any species found enslaving others will be removed from power immediately. Trade disputes will be settled by human arbitrators. Military conflicts between alien species are forbidden without human approval." The new rules were simple but absolute. Humanity would guarantee peace and safety for all species, but only under terms that humans would decide. Any alien government that wanted to continue existing would need human permission and human oversight. General Nick Adams commanded the new Galactic Defense Force, a massive fleet that patrolled every sector of known space. The force included ships and personnel from many different species, but all under human command. Adams had learned that the best way to prevent future wars was to make sure humans controlled all the weapons. Every alien fleet is now limited to defensive capabilities only, Adams explained to the gathered military attachés. Weapon systems capable of planetary bombardment have been removed or destroyed. Any species that wants military protection will request it from human forces. The alien military leaders nodded in understanding. They had seen what happened to the Zentari Grand Fleet when they tried to fight humans directly. None of them wanted their own fleets to suffer the same fate. Admiral Patricia Wells oversaw the new galactic trade system. She made sure that the economic mistakes of the past would never happen again. No more trade embargoes against human colonies. No more excluding humans from profitable trade routes. No more alien cartels controlling the flow of resources. Free trade means free for everyone, not just the species you like, Wells told the assembled trade representatives. Human merchants will have access to all markets. Human colonies will receive fair prices for their goods. Any attempt to discriminate against humans economically will result in immediate economic sanctions. The trade representatives agreed quickly. They had watched human forces shut down entire commercial networks in a matter of days. They knew that opposing human economic policies would mean the end of their own prosperity. Dr. Amy Foster ran the new Galactic Health Organization. She had once been a peaceful medical researcher who believed in helping everyone regardless of species. The war had taught her that sometimes you had to fight to protect the innocent, but she still believed in healing rather than hurting when possible. Medical care will be available to all species equally, Foster announced to the health ministers. No more denying treatment based on species or political affiliation. Human medical technology will be shared with anyone who needs it, but any attempt to use medical knowledge for weapons development will be punished severely. Foster remembered how alien medical facilities had refused to treat human patients during the war. Now those same facilities were begging for access to human medical advances that could cure diseases they had struggled with for centuries. Captain Roy Bennett was in charge of enforcing the new anti-slavery laws. His daughter had died in a Zentari slave raid, and he took personal satisfaction in dismantling the networks that had profited from human suffering. His forces moved through former Zentari territory, freeing millions of slaves and arresting their former masters. Every human taken as a slave has been freed and returned to their families, Bennett reported to the assembly. The aliens responsible for the slave trade are now working in human-supervised labor camps, learning what it feels like to have their freedom taken away. The former slave masters protested that forced labor was exactly the kind of thing they were being punished for. Bennett reminded them that the difference was simple. Their victims had been innocent civilians, while they were war criminals paying for their crimes. Colonel Steve Parker oversaw the new intelligence network that kept watch on potential threats to galactic peace. His agents were embedded in every major alien government, monitoring communications and reporting any signs of rebellion or resistance to human authority. "We will not be caught off guard again," Parker explained to his intelligence officers. "Every alien civilization is being watched constantly. We know what they are planning before they know it themselves. Any threat to human citizens or human interests will be eliminated before it can develop." The surveillance network used technology captured from defeated alien civilizations, combined with human innovations in data analysis and pattern recognition. No alien government could make a significant decision without human intelligence services knowing about it immediately. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, now renamed the UES New Haven, in honor of the colony that had been destroyed at the beginning of the war. He was patrolling the former Zentari territory, making sure the peace terms were being followed and that no one was planning any surprises. Morrison thought about how much had changed since that terrible day when New Haven went silent. Then he had been a frustrated officer watching helplessly as his people suffered. Now he was part of the force that ensured no human would ever suffer like that again. His communication officer, Lieutenant Kate Adams, brought him a message from Earth. It was a report on the memorial being built for the victims of New Haven Colony. 2 million names would be carved in stone, along with the words, "Never forgotten, never again." "Sir, there is also a message from the Zentari Provisional Government," Adams said. "They are requesting permission to establish a new trade agreement with the human colonies in their former territory." Morrison smiled grimly. The aliens who had once destroyed human settlements for sport were now begging for permission to do business with humans. "Tell them we will consider their request. Remind them that their trading privileges depend on their continued good behavior." The new galactic order was working exactly as humanity had planned. Former enemies were now competing to prove their loyalty and usefulness to their human rulers. Species that had once looked down on humanity were now desperate to earn human approval and protection. Captain Lisa Stone commanded a training facility where young aliens learned about human history and values. The curriculum included detailed lessons about the wars on Earth, the development of human technology, and the events that led to humanity's rise to galactic power. "Your people made the mistake of thinking humans were weak because we tried diplomacy first," Stone told her alien students. "You thought we were primitive because we followed your rules while you ignored them. The lesson you need to learn is that humans always have more options than we show you." The alien students listened carefully and took detailed notes. They knew that understanding humanity was now the key to their species' survival and prosperity. The old days of alien superiority were gone forever. President Davies concluded his speech to the Galactic Assembly with words that would be remembered for generations. "We tried to join your community as equals, and you rejected us. We offered friendship, and you gave us contempt. We asked for help, and you gave us cruelty." He paused and looked around the silent hall. "But we are not like you. We do not enjoy the suffering of others. We will protect all species under our authority, including those who once oppressed us. The galaxy will know peace, prosperity, and justice under human leadership." The alien delegates nodded their agreement, but Davies could see the fear in their eyes. They understood that humanity had shown them mercy, but they also understood that this mercy could be withdrawn at any time if they forgot their place in the new order. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had asked politely for respect and been denied. They had demonstrated that when politeness failed, they had other methods of getting what they wanted.